What's up? Welcome back. I'm John Stark, MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today, I stole this idea from another channel. They were talking about the top possible upsets at the Oscars. I didn't watch the video. I will, but I didn't, because I didn't want this to influence the way that I thought about things. And I thought it was interesting, mainly because what is an upset? We'll talk about that, but first, click like and subscribe because I'm a whore and I need your. Actually, it's really because I'm a blind film critic. Keyword being blind, and the more visibility that I have, I know I use the word visibility at this time, really helps because it seems like everybody else is running away from diversity, equity, inclusivity. And as a blind person talking largely about audio description and accessibility most of the time, I benefit heavily from those programs, not even necessarily at a government level, although I do, but also the film companies I'm trying to talk to convince them to make more audio description for people like me. I need them to care, and it seems like we're sending them the message that no one cares. So click like and subscribe and give me a platform. Thanks. So what is an actual upset? like, um, and it's something that I I kind of already heard somebody talk about this when they were talking about snubs, right? They were like, well, a snub is somebody who was actually expected to get the nomination, not just somebody who we thought was cool. And then, well, it didn't happen for them, but it was never going to happen for them. They weren't even close to the nomination. There was nothing to indicate that they had ever gotten close with a precursor award. They were so far from the nomination that nobody was predicting them. So, for example, Daniel Craig for Queer would be a snub because he was actually close enough for the nomination, but I don't know. Paul Mescal for Gladiator 2. um, if you were still beating that drum, not because he wasn't nominated anywhere and had no indication that he was headed for the Oscars, and Gladiator 2 as a film had sort of died off. So it's really hard to call him a snub. So what is an actual upset? What would an actual upset be? And are there actual potential upsets? um, so I think of if you're in a position right now where you're like, I think this person could win, or you can find YouTube channels that are saying it's between this person or this person, that's not an upset. So like if Demi Moore doesn't win the Oscar and it goes to Mikey Madison, that's not an upset. She just won the BAFTA. So that's why I didn't want to look at their videos, because I didn't want to be like, what are they actually saying is an upset? Because I think so many people think of upset as being, you know, well, an upset would be somebody who is perceived as lucky to have been nominated, in fourth or fifth place, or in the case of Best Picture, I would say eighth, ninth, or 10th, like perceived as being at the bottom, like the least likely. So those would be actual upsets. Although in this day and age, with where Amelia Perez is, 13, if Amelia Perez actually won all 13 categories that was nominated for, that in itself would be an upset because that movie is hated by so many people right now. So I thought I'd take a look at what could actually be an upset, not what will be an upset, but what an upset actually looks like to counter program to the people who think, what is an upset? So let's start with the Best Picture race. The only films that I think could actually be upsets at this point that have like zero chance of winning Best Picture, those are the ones that I think are upsets. I don't think, even if you think Anora, right? You're like, well, it's Anora because it won DGA and PGA. So it has to be Anora because that combination is unbeatable. Therefore too, of course. I think Conclave, the fact that it just won the BAFTA, you can't discount that. I think the fact that The Brutalist has won awards, you also can't discount that. Heading into, and I think if Wicked were to win SAG Ensemble, you can't discount that. Plus, Amelia Perez also has the Golden Globe for comedy or musicals, so that's 5 nominees. Those are not upsets. Those are all films that have indicated the ability to win at precursor awards that we use to indicate whether or not somebody is headed for this award or not. So, an upset would be Nickel Boys. Nickel Boys is only nominated in picture and screenplay. That's it. It's not just like Spotlight where it could only win picture and screenplay. It's actually only nominated in picture and screenplay. So I would consider Nickel Boys to be the upset here, and I just don't see Nickel Boys pulling it out. That would be shocking. Granted, that would be actually shocking, as would a surprise victory for Dune 2 at this point. Dune 2 just doesn't have the profile. Denis didn't get into the director. It doesn't have quite the tech support that the first film had. It's not going to have nearly the same amount of wins the first film had. I would consider Dune 2, which looks to probably only walk away with visual effects, to be an upset. I would consider The Substance an upset. Even though it's a great movie, nobody's predicting it to actually win. The fact that it got nominated has people going, oh my God, really? The Substance made it? So I would consider that to be an upset at the Oscars in a good way. But if The Substance suddenly won Best Picture at the Oscars, there are a couple critics guilds and stuff like that that are, that have chosen The Substance as Best Picture, but that's about it. It doesn't really go very far. So I think The Substance is as well. Now the two that I would question as sort of like in a morally gray area are Complete Unknown and I'm Still Here. Now, I'm Still Here was a surprise as a nomination in general. Would that make it an upset? I think so. I think the fact that it was thrown into the race, that it wasn't really predicted to get nominated and it ended up getting in anyway. If it suddenly went from lucky to be here to winning, I would consider that an upset. It hasn't won picture anywhere else. Its lead actress was not nominated at BAFTA or SAG, so it doesn't have quite the momentum needed. It's only nominated in 3 categories. It has a very low amount of nominations: picture, actress, and international. Not really a strong package. 2 of those are for the film. 1 of those is for the lead actress. You're not really like, where are the craft nominations? So if we have so many Brazilians now in here that are able to push this thing all the way to the win, that's amazing. So I would consider that an upset. And A Complete Unknown just doesn't have the profile, but it does have a package. I mean, that would be a surprise for sure. I would consider it more of a surprise than an upset, but I mean, it does have below the line nominations. It has a director's nomination. It has actor, supporting actor, and supporting actress. I mean, has it been winning any of them? No. I think it's a surprise, but at this point, Emilio Perez feels like that Golden Globe win was a long time ago. I would consider that a surprise now too, because of all of the stuff that's come out about the film. I just don't think it has enough votes. So I would lock those in as both surprises, not necessarily like upsets. Or I think the other films are upsets. For director, I think really most people have this race down to Sean Baker or Brady Corbet. So I guess if you're not one of those 2 people, you would be considered an upset. They haven't really won anywhere. Jacques Audiard, as much as I would love to see The Substance take director, it's just Coralie Farjad. She was my pick for a director. It's just I just don't think it's going to happen. I would consider that an upset, and I would consider obviously A Complete Unknown to be an upset, because that felt like the nomination that surprised. That was like, oh, okay, that happened. So yeah, I think it still is between Sean Baker and Brady Corbet. So if it was somebody else, that would be an upset. Actor, again, this race is being perceived by most people, enough people that I would say that the only two upset possibilities here are Coleman and Sebastian. That's it. There are enough people who believe that Timothée Chalamet and Ralph Fiennes have a reasonable chance of winning to, to not be able to call those upsets. I don't think that's an upset. I think that's just maybe a surprise, something that headed in a different direction. Plus, we don't know how SAG's going to turn out, which will indicate a lot of what is actually a surprise if Brody doesn't win the SAG. So, actress again. No, if Mikey Madison wins actress and Demi Moore does not, it's not a snub. It's not a surprise. Nothing happened there. The math, But also, Fernanda Torres, who a lot of people are like, well, that would be is it? She did win the Globe. I mean, it seems a little bit surprising because she wasn't nominated at BAFTA or at SAG, but she was nominated elsewhere. So, and won against other actresses. So I think that's probably, but, so I think the actual ones left here to be a true blue upset would be Cynthia Erivo or Carla Sofia Gascon. I want to say Cynthia Erivo would immediately not be called an upset because she'd become the second Black actress to have ever won the award. And I'd like to think the same thing for Carla if she didn't have social media. Like if she did surprisingly win this category, in a different world, it would actually be considered like a good surprise. Now, she feels like she's really the only upset that could actually happen, where people would be like, what the fuck is that? What just happened? We still gave her the Oscar? She hasn't even won anything, I mean, that kind of conversation. So, unfortunately, I think Carla's the upset. Supporting actor, this one's a little bit more broad, and I'm willing to give a little bit more wiggle room here because Kieran has swept the season. I don't think anybody has any reasonable expectation that Yura Borisov or Jeremy Strong has a chance to take it from Kieran. Normally, when I hear the conversation, it's focused solely on Edward Norton. Guy Pearce, I guess, if the Brutalist just started sweeping hard, and it became like the night of the Brutalist, if he ended up winning this, because I think Felicity Jones would be more of an actual upset than Guy Pearce. I think he's a little bit closer because of the lack of a second place person, of a clear second place person. I think the perception is that Edward Norton, because he's on his fourth nomination, must be second place. I just don't believe that that's the reason, but maybe it is. Maybe he is in second place. It's really hard to figure out who's in second place. So almost I'm willing to accept the fact that any one of those four would be an upset, because Kieran, I'm presuming he will win SAG, has won everything. He's swept the entire season. So if he doesn't win, literally anybody else would be an upset because nobody has won anything. So supporting actress, you could say the same thing about Zoe, except for the conversation has been so strongly Zoe or Ariana that if the Oscars just decide not to go Emilia Perez's way and they go to Ariana, I would look at it more broadly. Like, if Emilia Perez is embraced at all and then Zoe doesn't get it, then that Ariana winning would be an upset. But if it stands that Zoe would be the only win for Emilia Perez, if it doesn't win anywhere, if it even loses international in song, I mean, if we've completely reversed course on Emilia Perez to where it actually did affect Zoe, then I think the greater upset there is the fact that Emilia Perez went 0 for 13. So Zoe is the film's best chance of winning an Oscar other than song. The song category is so weak that if it loses song early on in the night, beware. Or whenever we do song in the night, beware for the rest of the categories. So international feature could go to I'm Still Here. They're both nominated in picture. There's no reason to believe that it wouldn't. So yeah, I think Ariana's maybe the only one that I wouldn't say. And it really depends on the situation. Plus, Ariana could still win SAG. So we'll see. But any of the other three leading, supporting actresses, yeah, they would all be upsets. They really don't have the profile. Nobody's taking them seriously to win. Screenplay, this thing has been won by multiple people in this race. So I refuse. I refuse to say that there is a snub here, except for maybe like one film, because there's reason to believe that Sean Baker will win for Anora. There's reason to believe that Brady Corbet will win for The Brutalists. There's reason to believe that Coralie Farjah will win for The Substance, because she won an award for screenplay. And Jesse Eisenberg just won BAFTA for Real Pain. So this category is a little bit more up in the air than people are willing to give it. I would be surprised if Coralie or Jesse won. I think this is still between, once again, Sean and Brady. But I think maybe that fifth place is really the only thing that actually could be perceived as an actual surprise at this point. Over at Adapted, Conclave has been doing a much better job of sweeping Adapted. So I'm willing to entertain the idea more. It even won the neutral category at Globes. Like the one opportunity that it had to compete against original screenplays, it still beat them. So Conclave feels like, and then it feels like anything else would be an upset. I feel like Conclave is pretty much guaranteed this category. And everything else is just happy to be here. Animated feature. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's Wild Robot's Game, but it's really hard for me to completely ignore Flow and the support that Flow has had. Yes, I know Wallace and Gromit won the BAFTA. You know what? I would still consider it a surprise here because that's a very specific choice. Wallace and Gromit lost its first BAFTA, like as a collective unit this year for Best British Film. They love Wallace and Gromit so much over there that Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit was winner of Best British Film in 2005. So for the films that coming out of 2005. If that doesn't indicate to you how slanted that category was always in its favor, it just doesn't have the same support here. So that would be the one time where, even with a win, I would consider Wallace and Gromit to be an upset. International, I would actually at this point see that The Sacred Fig has no reason to win, so I would consider it a surprise, a shock. So, like I said, I think it's between Emilia Perez and I'm Still Here, the two films actually nominated outside this category. The rest of the films are not. For documentary feature, this may be a little bit broader. This may be me looking narrowly at the things, but because of where they're voting and how they're voting, I think this category came down to, at the last minute, between Porcelain War and No Other Land. And I think because of the current political climate, and attacks from our government that are being made both against Ukrainians and in the Gaza Strip, I think the documentary about the war in Ukraine and the documentary about the war in Gaza, I think those two caught way more attention, caught fire, and left the others behind. I would be shocked if any of the other three won. If they didn't go for one of the two activist war documentaries, that would surprise me. I think No Other Land has won a ton of prizes. Porcelain War won PGA, so it does have something there. But at this point, even if you've won something else in the documentary race, at the period at which Oscar voters were voting, we put so much of a real world attention on those two topics that I don't see how anything else can win this category. This is a category that the last two winners had to do with the Ukrainian war, Navalny and 20 Days of Mariupol. So Do I think Porcelain War could sweep and we could have a third year winner of something that represents the war in Ukraine? Absolutely. Do I also think that we could have just a third year of a very current, war-torn documentary with No Other Land? Absolutely. I believe both of those to be true. So I would vote for No Other Land. I think it's a more powerful documentary, but we also have a president trying to give away part of the country that isn't theirs. So Porcelain War could sweep just so that they could bring more attention to Ukraine. It's a coin flip at this point. The other categories, I don't know that there are snubs or surprises because you're only looking at a guild at that point. You're looking at you're going to like the guild and being like, I don't know who won. Because a lot of these you're either just using BAFTA or you're using critics groups, but Golden Globe doesn't have a lot of these categories. They have like score, but they gave that to challengers. So this doesn't always help. Not everybody's nominated, Song, like I said, I feel like it has to be Emilio Perez, or I would consider that to be an upset, even though I don't want it to be, but I would consider it to be. In score, I think people mostly are leaning towards The Brutalist, but again, I don't think that there's, I guess, I don't know what an actual upset here would be. Wicked, because it's not fully an original score, I guess, because there's so much of it. There's so much controversy around the fact that they allowed Wicked to go in, but not Dune. I'm not the only one that's mentioned that. I think if Wicked actually won original score, that would be maybe like a true upset that would actually have people upset, like legitimately. And in visual effects, Dune is considered to be like, that's considered a lock for Dune. So I guess if Dune didn't win, and same thing with makeup for The Substance, like I think those are just presumed winners. So anything else but them. But cinematography could go a different way. It doesn't necessarily have to go. Same thing, editing is up for grabs. Editing is likely going to go whatever goes to picture. I think it'll align. Editing is going to be a great indicator of maybe where we're headed for the night. Costume design is probably Wicked, but it doesn't mean it has to be. Production design, there looks like some categories that Wicked could win. So I feel a little bit less about the tech category upsets. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I think that when you use the word upset, it has to be an actual upset. If I'll go and watch that video and they're like, if Mikey Madison beats Demi Moore, it's an upset. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. We don't even know who's going to win SAG. She could win SAG. If she wins BAFTA and SAG, she's equal competition for Demi. It's just, I don't know. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Inclusivity is not a bad word. I'll see you guys on the other side.